What happens when a calm, composed Hollywood star walks onto one of the most unpredictable stages on television and finds himself pulled into a moment he never saw coming? The lights blaze to life. The familiar hum of the studio audience swells into applause, warm but expectant. Cameras glide into position with mechanical precision, capturing every angle, every flicker of expression. It's just another morning. At least, that's what it's supposed to be. But beneath the polished smiles and practiced introductions, something else is brewing. And today, it's about to surface. Before we dive into this unforgettable moment, make sure you subscribe to Stage View, hit that like button, and drop a comment below. Because stories like this don't just entertain, they stay with you. Sebastian Stan steps out onto the stage, his posture relaxed, his smile easy, but his eyes sharp, observant, take everything in. He's done interviews before. Countless. Red carpets, press junkets, late-night shows. He knows how this works. Charm, humor, a little vulnerability. It's a rhythm he's mastered. But this is different. The energy on this set is alive in a way that feels unpredictable. Joy Behar sits at the table, her expression already carrying that unmistakable mix of curiosity and challenge. She's known for it. That edge. That willingness to go just a little further than others might. And today, she's watching him closely. The introductions are smooth, the kind that glide by without friction. Laughter bubbles up from the panel as they welcome him. The audience claps again, louder this time, feeding off the chemistry they expect to see. Sebastian takes his seat. For a moment, everything feels exactly as it should. They start easy. A question about his latest project. His preparation. The emotional depth of the character. He answers with thoughtful clarity, his voice steady, his words deliberate. I think what drew me in, he says, leaning slightly forward, was the complexity. He's not just one thing. He's constantly evolving, and that's what makes him real. The panel nods. It's a safe start. Comfortable. But then, almost imperceptibly, the tone shifts. Joy tilts her head, her lips curling into a half-smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes. That's interesting, she says, her voice light but edged. Because some people might say you've been playing variations of the same type of character for a while now. There's a ripple in the audience. Subtle, but there. Sebastian doesn't react immediately. He pauses, just for a fraction of a second too long. Inside, something tightens. But on the surface, he smiles. Well, he replies calmly, I think every character has similarities. That's part of storytelling. But I try to bring something new each time. Joy leans back slightly, crossing her arms. Do you? She presses. The room changes. It's small, almost invisible, but the shift is undeniable. Sebastian feels it, the weight of the question, the implication behind it. He exhales quietly, choosing his words carefully. I believe I do, yeah, he says. Otherwise, I wouldn't be interested in the role. A few nods from the other hosts. One of them jumps in quickly, trying to keep things balanced. I think audiences really connect with your range. But Joy isn't done. She leans forward now, her gaze locked onto him. Or maybe, she interrupts, audiences just connect with what they're used to seeing from you. Isn't that safer? A sharper reaction this time. Audible murmurs. Someone in the audience lets out a quiet, oh. Sebastian's smile fades, not completely, but enough to reveal something underneath. Focus. Control. And just a flicker of irritation. Safer, he repeats, his voice still even. I don't think storytelling is about safety. At least, not for me. Joy raises an eyebrow. Really? Because Hollywood doesn't always reward risk. There it is. The tension, now fully formed, sitting between them like an invisible barrier. Sebastian shifts slightly in his seat. Not uncomfortable, but alert. I think that depends on how you define risk, he replies. Sometimes playing something subtle, something internal, is the biggest risk. Joy lets out a small laugh. Or the easiest one to hide behind. The audience reacts again, this time louder. A mix of gasps, nervous laughter, and that unmistakable buzz of anticipation. Something is happening. This isn't the usual back and forth. Sebastian's jaw tightens just briefly. Inside his mind, thoughts are moving faster now. Is this intentional? Is she pushing for something? He's been in tough interviews before. He knows how quickly things can spiral if you let them. But he also knows when to stand his ground. He leans forward slightly, mirroring her posture now. I don't hide behind my work, he says, his tone firmer. I commit to it. Joy meets his gaze without hesitation. Then why does it feel like we're seeing the same commitment over and over again? Silence. Real silence. The kind that stretches just long enough to make everyone aware of it. The other hosts exchange quick glances. One of them shifts in her seat, clearly debating whether to step in. But no one does. Because this is the moment. Sebastian inhales slowly, his eyes never leaving Joy. And when he speaks, his voice is quieter. But sharper. Maybe, he says, you're only looking for one version of it. The audience reacts instantly, applause breaking through the tension like a sudden storm. Joy's expression changes. Not dramatically, but enough. There's a spark now. A recognition that this isn't going to be one-sided. Oh, she says, her tone carrying a hint of amusement. So now it's my perspective that's limited? Sebastian doesn't smile this time. I didn't say that, he replies. But I do think perception plays a role in how we judge performance. Joy leans back again, studying him. For a moment, it almost feels like she's reassessing. But then, she smiles, and it's sharper than before. Well, perception also plays a role in how we judge confidence, she says. And sometimes confidence can come off as defensiveness. Another ripple. Another shift. Sebastian's eyes narrow slightly, not in anger, but in concentration. He's choosing his next move. Carefully, because now this isn't just an interview. It's a conversation with stakes. I think, he says slowly, there's a difference between defending your work and explaining it. Joy tilts her head again. And which one are you doing right now? The question hangs in the air like a challenge. Sebastian pauses. And for the first time since he walked onto that stage, he doesn't answer immediately. The audience leans in. The hosts wait. Even Joy, watching him closely, seems to hold her breath for just a second. Because whatever comes next will define the rest of this moment, and maybe everything that follows. The silence stretches just a second longer than anyone expects. And in live television, that second feels like an eternity. Sebastian finally leans back, not retreating, but recalibrating. His fingers interlock loosely in his lap, a subtle grounding gesture. When he speaks, his voice is steady, but there's a new weight behind it now. I think I'm doing both, he says. And I think that's fair. A few claps break out from the audience, tentative at first, then growing. Not overwhelming, but enough to signal something important. People are choosing sides. Joy notices it. Of course she does. Her smile flickers, not disappearing, but tightening at the edges. She glances briefly toward the audience, then back at Sebastian, as if recalculating her approach in real time. Well, she says, crossing one leg over the other. Fair doesn't always mean convincing. A soft ripples through the crowd. Sebastian nods slowly, as if acknowledging the point, but not conceding it. Convincing to who? He asks. Joy doesn't miss a beat. To people who expect more, she replies. And there it is again, that subtle escalation. Not loud, not explosive, but precise. Each word placed carefully, like pieces on a chessboard. Sebastian's gaze sharpens. And what does more look like to you? He asks. Joy leans forward slightly, clearly ready for this. Transformation, she says. Something that makes you forget who the actor is. Something unpredictable. Not just controlled intensity. There's a murmur in the audience, this time more divided. Some nodding, some shifting uncomfortably. Sebastian hears it all. And for the first time, there's a flicker of something more personal behind his expression. Not anger. Not yet. But something closer to being misunderstood. I think transformation isn't always loud, he says. Sometimes it's internal. Sometimes it's about what you don't show. Joy raises an eyebrow again. That's a convenient argument, she says. A few gasps louder now. One of the co-hosts shifts forward quickly, sensing the temperature rising. Okay, but I think what Sebastian is saying. But Sebastian lifts his hand slightly. Not dismissive, just enough to signal that he's okay continuing. No, it's fine, he says calmly. Then, turning back to Joy. Why is that convenient? Joy pauses. Just for a moment. And in that moment, the entire room feels it, the shift from commentary to confrontation. Because, she says slowly, it gives you an excuse not to push beyond a certain boundary. The audience reacts instantly, some applause, some audible disagreement. Sebastian's jaw tightens again. This time, he doesn't hide it as quickly. I disagree with that, he says, his tone firmer now. I think it takes more discipline to hold something back than to put everything on display. Joy lets out a small laugh, shaking her head slightly. Or maybe it just looks that way from the outside. There's tension now, real, palpable tension. The kind that makes even the camera operators hold their breath. One of the hosts finally steps in, her voice carefully balanced. I think there are different styles of acting, right? Some people are more external, some are more internal. But that doesn't mean they're equally effective. Joy cuts in. The interruption lands hard. Sebastian exhales through his nose, a controlled release. Inside, his thoughts are sharper now, faster. This isn't just critique anymore. This is personal. He leans forward again, matching her energy completely now. And who decides what's effective? He asks. Joy's answer is immediate. The audience. Critics. The industry. Sebastian nods once. Right, he says. And those opinions change all the time. Joy tilts her head. Convenient again. A louder reaction this time, half laughter, half tension. Sebastian's composure holds, but just barely. There's a shift in his posture now, something more grounded, more deliberate. You keep saying that, he says. Like it invalidates the point. Joy shrugs lightly. Sometimes it does. Another pause. But this one feels different. Heavier. Because now it's no longer just about acting. It's about perspective. Authority. Credibility. Sebastian studies her for a moment, really studies her, as if trying to understand where this is coming from. And then he speaks again. But this time it's quieter. More deliberate. I respect your opinion, he says. I really do. But I think there's a difference between challenging someone and reducing what they do. The room goes still. Joy doesn't respond immediately. For the first time since this began, she hesitates. Just slightly. And everyone notices. The audience leans in again, sensing something shifting beneath the surface. One of the co-hosts glances between them, clearly aware that this has gone far beyond the usual tone of the show. Joy finally speaks. And you think I'm reducing you? She asks. Sebastian doesn't look away. I think you're simplifying something that isn't simple, he replies. A beat. Then another. Joy's expression changes. Not softer, not harsher, but more focused. And I think, she says slowly, you're avoiding something that should be addressed. There's a ripple of tension again. What am I avoiding? Sebastian asks. Joy leans in, her voice lower now, more direct than it's been this entire time. The possibility, she says, that you've found a comfort zone, and you're staying in it. The words land like a spark in dry air. Immediate reaction, gasps, whispers, scattered applause. Sebastian doesn't move, doesn't blink. For a second, it's impossible to tell what he's thinking. But then, a small, almost imperceptible smile appears. Not amused, not mocking, but knowing. You think this is a comfort zone? He asks quietly. Joy holds his gaze. I think it could be, she says. And that's when something changes. Not in the room, not in the audience, but in Sebastian. Because now he's no longer just responding. He's deciding whether to keep playing this carefully, or to say what he really thinks. He shifts in his seat, leaning forward just enough to signal that whatever comes next won't be the same as what came before. The other hosts fall completely silent now. No interruptions. No attempts to soften the moment. Because they can feel it too. They've crossed a line. And there's no going back. Sebastian takes a breath. Slow. Measured. And when he speaks again, there's a quiet intensity in his voice that wasn't there before. If I was in a comfort zone, he says, I wouldn't be here having this conversation. The audience erupts, loud, immediate applause, mixed with a few shocked reactions. Joy doesn't clap. She watches him, closely, and for the first time since the interview began. She doesn't interrupt, but the look in her eyes says everything. Because now, this isn't just a tense exchange anymore. It's something deeper. A clash of perspectives that neither of them is willing to back down from. And as the cameras keep rolling, capturing every expression, every pause, every charged second, one thing becomes painfully clear to everyone in that studio. This moment is far from over. The applause doesn't fade quickly this time. It lingers, louder, more divided, more emotional. Some people are clapping for Sebastian. Others are reacting to the tension itself. A few sit frozen, watching like they've just witnessed something slip off script in real time. And at that table, no one moves to break it. Sebastian sits still, his gaze steady, his posture grounded in a way that signals something unmistakable. He's no longer just navigating the conversation. He's in it. Joy Behar watches him just as intently, her expression now more measured, less performative. The sharpness is still there, but it's layered with something else now. Curiosity, maybe even a hint of respect. But she doesn't soften. Not yet. Well, she says after the applause finally dies down, her voice cutting cleanly through the remaining noise. You're here now. So let's have it. A quiet ripple moves through the audience. This is different. This isn't a jab. This is an invitation. Sebastian tilts his head slightly, as if weighing the moment. You want honesty? He asks. Joy nods once. I always do. There's a brief pause, just long enough to feel intentional. And then Sebastian leans forward again, his elbows resting lightly on his knees, closing the distance between himself and the table. When he speaks this time, there's no performance in it. No polish. Just clarity. I think sometimes, he begins, there's a tendency, especially in spaces like this, to reduce people into versions that are easier to talk about. The audience quiets instantly. Joy doesn't interrupt. That version becomes the headline, he continues. The narrative. And once it sticks, everything else gets filtered through it. Joy watches him carefully, her fingers now loosely folded on the table. And you think that's happening to you? She asks. Sebastian nods slightly. I think it happens to a lot of people, he says. Not just me. A few murmurs of agreement ripple through the crowd. Joy leans in just a fraction. But we're not talking about a lot of people, she says. We're talking about you. There's no hostility in her tone this time. Just focus. And that makes it more intense. Sebastian exhales slowly, considering. Then yeah, he says. I think sometimes it does. The honesty lands. You can feel it. Even the audience reacts differently. Less noise, more attention. Joy tilts her head again, studying him. Then why not break it? She asks. Why not do something so different that no one can put you in that box again? Sebastian lets out a small breath, almost a laugh, but not quite. You say that like it's a switch, he replies. Like you just decide one day and everything changes. Joy shrugs lightly. Isn't that what great actors do? There's a flicker in Sebastian's eyes now. Not frustration. Something deeper. They take risks, he says. But people only recognize those risks after the fact. When it works. Joy doesn't disagree. But she doesn't concede either. So you're saying you have taken those risks? She asks. Sebastian meets her gaze directly. I know I have, he says. The confidence in his voice is undeniable. Not defensive. Not forced. Earned. Joy leans back slightly, her expression shifting again. This time, less confrontational, more analytical. Then maybe the question is, she says slowly, why people aren't seeing them. The words hang there. And for a moment, they don't feel like an attack. They feel like something else. A challenge. Sebastian pauses. Really pauses. Because that question lands differently. The audience senses it too. The energy shifts, not lower, but deeper. I think, he says carefully, sometimes people see what they expect to see. Joy nods once. That's true, she admits. It's the first clear moment of agreement between them. And it changes everything. But only slightly. Because the tension hasn't disappeared. It's evolved. And sometimes, Joy adds, people expect more because they believe you're capable of it. That lands harder than anything she said before. Because it doesn't sound like criticism. It sounds like expectation. Sebastian's expression shifts, just subtly. His shoulders relax a fraction. That's fair, he says quietly. The audience reacts again, but softer this time. Less shock, more engagement. One of the co-hosts finally leans in, sensing an opening. I think what's interesting here, she says, is that both of you are talking about perception versus intention. But intention doesn't always translate, Joy interjects, though her tone is less sharp now. Sebastian nods. No, it doesn't, he agrees. And that agreement, simple as it is, lands like a turning point. Because now they're not talking at each other. They're talking through something. But the moment doesn't settle completely. Because there's still something unresolved. Joy taps her fingers lightly against the table, thinking. Then she looks back at him. So let me ask you this, she says. If you had the chance, right now, to completely surprise people, to do something no one expects from you, would you take it? The question feels bigger than the show. Bigger than the conversation. Sebastian doesn't answer right away. The audience leans in again. Even the hosts stay quiet. Because this feels like a defining moment. He looks down briefly, then back up. And when he speaks, his voice is softer than it's been this entire time. I think I already am, he says. Silence. Real silence. Joy studies him. And if people don't see it, she asks. Sebastian's answer comes quicker this time. Then maybe it's not about being seen right away. A beat. Maybe it's about trusting that it will be. The audience exhales collectively, some nodding, some still uncertain, but all completely drawn in. Joy leans back slowly, her expression unreadable for a moment. Then, she smiles. Not sharp, not challenging, but genuine. Well, she says, that's either very confident or very patient. A few laughs ripple through the crowd. Sebastian allows a small smile in return. Maybe both, he says. The tension breaks, just slightly, but not completely, because underneath that exchange, something still lingers. Unspoken, unresolved, the kind of energy that doesn't disappear when the conversation shifts. It waits, and as the cameras continue to roll, capturing the subtle glances between hosts, the quiet reactions from the audience, the controlled composure from both sides, there's a growing sense that this moment, this conversation, is building towards something even bigger. Something that won't just stay in this studio. Something that's about to follow them far beyond it. The studio lights are still burning bright, but something about them feels different now. Not warmer, not softer, sharper, like they're exposing more than they were meant to. There's a pause after Sebastian's last words. Maybe both. It lingers in the air, subtle but powerful, like the final note of a song that hasn't quite finished echoing. And for a brief moment, everything feels balanced. But live television doesn't stay still for long. Joy shifts in her seat, her smile still there, but there's a new layer beneath it. Thoughtful, calculating, as if she's deciding whether to let the moment rest or push it just a little further. And of course, she pushes. Well, she says, her tone lighter now but still carrying that unmistakable edge. I guess we'll all be watching very closely to see if that patience pays off. A ripple of reaction from the audience. Some amused, some intrigued, some still holding on to the tension that hasn't fully disappeared. Sebastian nods once. I hope you do, he replies. It's simple, but it lands. Because now it doesn't feel like a defense. It feels like a statement. One of the co-hosts quickly steps in, her voice bright, carefully steering the energy back towards safer ground. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. But when we come back, we'll talk more about your upcoming projects. The audience applauds on cue, the familiar rhythm of television snapping back into place. Music swells. Cameras pan out. And just like that, they cut to commercial. But the moment doesn't end there. Because off camera, the energy shifts again. The smiles fade first. Not completely, but enough. Sebastian leans back in his chair, exhaling quietly, running a hand over the back of his neck. It's a small gesture, but it says everything, the release of tension, the weight of holding composure under pressure. Across from him, Joy adjusts her notes, glancing up briefly. For a second, their eyes meet. No cameras, no audience cues, just silence. And in that silence, there's something unspoken. Not hostility, not quite resolution either. Just acknowledgement that something real just happened. One of the producers steps closer, speaking in a low voice, checking in, smoothing edges, making sure everything stays on track. Sebastian nods politely. Joy gives a short, casual response. Professional, controlled, but the air still hums with what just unfolded. When the show returns from break, everything looks normal again. Too normal. The questions are lighter now. Upcoming roles, behind-the-scenes stories, a quick joke that earns an easy laugh. The audience settles back into comfort, grateful, or maybe relieved, for the shift in tone. Sebastian plays along, his charm returning effortlessly. But there's something different now, something quieter beneath the surface. A measured awareness in every answer. Joy, too, moves with the flow of the segment. But she watches him. Not critically, not aggressively, just attentively. And every now and then, there's the faintest hint of a smile. One that suggests she knows this moment won't just disappear when the show ends. Because moments like this never do. The episode wraps with applause, the kind that fills the room and signals closure. Sebastian Stan, everyone. The audience rises slightly, clapping, cheering, phones already lifting to capture the final seconds. He waves, smiles, thanks the hosts. Joy nods toward him, offering a brief, almost knowing glance. And then, the cameras cut, the lights dim, and just like that, it's over. Or at least it should be. Because within minutes, before Sebastian has even fully left the building, before the hosts have even finished their post-show conversations, the internet catches fire. Clips begin to surface. Short at first, grainy, cropped, then sharper, clearer, faster. The exact moment Joy says, or the easiest one to hide behind. Sebastian's pause. His response. The silence. The shift. It's all there. Replayed. Reanalyzed. Reframed. Social media splits almost instantly. Some viewers rally behind Sebastian, praising his composure, his restraint, the way he stood his ground without losing control. Comments flood in. He handled that with class. That wasn't an interview. That was an interrogation. He said everything without raising his voice. Respect. Others side with Joy, arguing that she asked the questions many were thinking but wouldn't say. She wasn't wrong. Actors need to be challenged. He got defensive the moment it got real. And then there are those caught in between, watching the exchange over and over, dissecting every word, every expression, every pause like it's a puzzle waiting to be solved. Media outlets pick it up next. Headlines appear within the hour. Clips are embedded into articles. Panel discussions start forming. What really happened? Was it fair or too far? Sebastian Stan versus Joy Behar, the moment everyone's talking about. And just like that, a conversation that started on one stage becomes something much bigger. Something louder. Something impossible to contain. Back in the quiet of a car pulling away from the studio, Sebastian sits by the window, city lights reflecting faintly across the glass. His phone buzzes. Once. Twice. Again. Messages. Notifications. Mentions. He glances at the screen, just briefly, then locks it, leans back, and closes his eyes for a moment. Not to escape it, but to process it, because moments like that don't just pass. They stay. They echo. Across town, in a different space, Joy scrolls through the same wave of reactions, her expression calm, unreadable. She pauses on one clip. The moment he says, "Maybe you're only looking for one version of it." She watches it twice, then sets her phone down. A small smile crosses her face. Not triumphant, not regretful, just thoughtful. Because she knows something too, that what happened wasn't just conflict. It was conversation, the kind that lingers, the kind people remember, and maybe the kind that matters. Days later, the clip is still circulating. Discussions evolve, opinions shift, new perspectives emerge. But one thing remains constant. People are still watching, still debating, still asking the same question. What really happened on that stage? And now it's your turn. Was Sebastian right to stand his ground the way he did? Or was Joy justified in pushing him beyond his comfort zone? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We're reading every single one. And if you want more moments like this, raw, intense, and impossible to look away from, make sure you subscribe to Stage View, hit like, and stay tuned. Because the next story might be even more explosive.